Like all of you, I was shocked and deeply saddened by the calamity at the Capitol last week.
President Trump last night denounced what he's now calling the calamity on the Capitol, a deadly attack that just hours earlier was the basis for charging him with incitement to insurrection.
And with our heart broken over what this means to our country, we'll sign the engrossment of the article of impeachment.
Donald Trump's first impeachment took 3 months. Yesterday's less than 3 hours. Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, chose to wear the same black dress as a symbol to mark the moment. The first ever second impeachment of a sitting US president. The rabble-rouser-in-chief, Donald Trump, that history will now record was officially charged with inciting an angry mob to descend on the US Capitol in a violent attack that left 5 dead and a nation deeply scarred. Yesterday's ceremony, an altogether more solemn affair, with the nation's capital locked down amid fears of further attacks. And on the same day, more than 4,000 Americans died from COVID-19. A moment even he was persuaded to mark as the now isolated president sought to fend off potential legal action for his alleged culpability in the deadly riot.
No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag.
On this vote, the ayes are 232. The nays are 197.
In the end, every Democrat and a small but significant number of Republicans voted to impeach the president, though 197 Republicans stood by him, including the hardcore element of Trump diehards, who argued in the same chamber that a week before was ransacked that the evidence was lacking.
It seems to me that impeachment is an itch that doesn't go away with just one scratch. Some have cited the metaphor that the president lit the flame. Well, they lit actual flames, actual fires.
Congressman Getz comparing the US Capitol attack to the riots last summer after unarmed black Americans were killed by white police officers.
Can I just get your immediate reaction to the pending impeachment of Donald Trump?
Well, I think it was unjustified. I gave those remarks on the floor. Again,
He clearly didn't want to talk. Others dismissed the process as a farce.
Impeachment in the past has been a very thoughtful, deliberative process. Today, we're treating it like it's just another vote.
It was political theater.
The evidence is there. The evidence is here. The windows are still broken. I mean, what more evidence do you need?
I need to see more, okay, of what exactly happened, who did what, and also what were the actions of the president. I know, and I also know what he said at the steps. Say, go peacefully, patriotically, and voice your opinion.
He also did encourage them, told them to fight.
We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
The word fight is used all the time here. Fight for our freedoms, fight for your rights. You know, does it mean that you're going to, you're inciting a riot and violence? If that were the case, every politician that I know of would be guilty of that.
But it's only Donald Trump's call to fight that's led to 20,000 troops being deployed to protect the Capitol.
Whether or not Donald Trump is now convicted and removed by the Senate is anyone's guess. The Democrats I've spoken to here say it almost doesn't matter, that they did what they did today for the sake of the Constitution and their conscience.
The camera of history is rolling, and people yet unborn, 200-300 years from now, they will be looking at my words and my deeds. If I had stood by silently and did nothing, then I think that I would be reflected upon in history in a very, very bad way.
History will reflect on all the events here as among the darkest days in America, when the US president, the supposed leader of the free world, was charged with inciting a deadly insurrection against his own government in a desperate bid to cling to power.
Well, Siobhan joins me now. Siobhan, Donald Trump once promised us a wall. He's got one, but it's built around the Capitol to protect it from him and his supporters.
I know, Matt, you can't make it up, can you? Look at the size of it. And I think what we saw last night was a different tone from the president. He's clearly very worried, having been charged and impeached for insurrection, about the legal potential culpability around himself. That's why we saw him for the first time, Matt, last night appeal directly to his supporters with that plea for calm. But we also saw him try to distance himself from them, didn't we, with that sentence, as no true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. Apart from the fact, Matt, last week we stood here and saw hundreds of them do exactly that, and we heard the president mid-riot say that they were special people and that we loved him, that he loved them. And guess what? The latest is that the Senate trial to potentially convict and remove him could begin when the Senate reconvenes on, guess when, January the 20th, the very day that Joe Biden is due to be sworn in as the next president. You cannot make
stuff.
it up.
Extraordinary. Thanks very much, Siobhan. Well, I'm joined now by Professor Timothy Snyder, a historian specialising in fascism and political atrocity at Yale University. Thank you so much for coming back on the programme, Professor Snyder. As you have written extensively in recent weeks, words matter enormously, and so do lies. Tell us about the big lie that you've been writing about, and what needs to happen to that lie for America to come together again.
Well, the big lie is, of course, Mr. Trump's claim that he won the 2020 presidential election. This is a big lie because it's not true. It's a big lie because it's self-contradictory. Why would there have been fraud against him but not against others? It's also a big lie because it reaches deep back into dark places in American history. It's based upon the racist idea that we really shouldn't be thinking about Black people voting, or if they do vote, we should call it fraudulent. The problem with a big lie, as opposed to an everyday political lie, is it creates tribes. If you believe something like this, as many people do, it separates you from the rest of the world. And if you believe something like this, it makes you feel like you have to carry out some kind of desperate or violent action, as we've already seen. What to do about this? I mean, first of all, call it by its name. Recognize that big lies are part of authoritarian regime changes in history. Second of all, tell the truth about the election, especially if you're a Republican in a position of authority. If you want to get past Trumpism, the simple thing to do is tell the truth. And the third thing is to recognize the consequences of the big lie, namely violence, have to have some kind of judicial consequence. The law has been broken, and so the law should be enforced.
Okay, but the problem is also that this big lie is perhaps the best political weapon that Donald Trump still has at his disposal as he goes into retirement. So unless he says it's a lie, millions of people are still going to believe him.
Yeah, life's complicated. He's never going to give up. I mean, he's a skillful politician, and one of his skills is that he never admits that he's wrong. He's never going to concede that he lost this election. He's going to repeat this lie indefinitely. The more interesting question for me, though, is who inherits this big lie. You can see Senator Cruz and Senator Hawley already lining up to be the person who says, yes, not just Mr. Trump, but the whole electorate, the American people were martyred in 2020. I will represent your grievances in 2024. The reason to stop the big lie isn't just to get Mr. Trump out of politics. Frankly, a majority of Republicans already want that, even if they won't say so. The problem is getting the big lie out of politics altogether. That's what has to happen.
Finally, and briefly, what happens to the Republican Party now? And is there a danger of a backlash that President Trump can once again claim with impeachment that there's a witch hunt? Briefly.
Look, when you do something horrible, it's not very fitting to threaten to do something else horrible. That's what Mr. Trump is doing now. What we have is actually an opportunity for the Republican Party. They can free them. They have a few weeks to free themselves from Trumpism and realign on a different basis on which maybe they can win elections in the future. If they don't do that, then the risk.
That's all we have time for. Timothy Snyder, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to break it off there. Thank you very much for coming on the program. We'll be back tomorrow night.